Welcome back to TalkSport End Zone, TalkSport's dedicated NFL YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out the rundown every Tuesday with me, Brian T. Smith, Phoebe Schechter, breaking down the weekend's action, looking forward to the big games of the coming week and talking about all the big debating points, all the big stories from the week in the NFL. You can go there, like, subscribe, get involved now. And I'm delighted to say that joining us for the first time on the channel, although I hope it will be some repeat business because he's one of the great thinkers when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. And let's be fair, it's a small pool. RJ Ochoa from Blogging with the Boys. How are you doing? Blogging the Boys, even. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great, Will. Great to be with you. I'm a big fan of you, of talkSPORT. I'm so happy to see the YouTube channel is off and running and thriving. It's great. I mean, I'm doing everything I can to distract myself from the aforementioned Dallas Cowboys.
Well, yeah, so, I mean, we're both sitting here at 1-2. We're both sitting here with Super Bowl hopes and expectations on our season. So I think we can all accept that it's not the position we wanted to be in. I think the first question is, from a Cowboys perspective, was that fourth quarter performance lipstick on a pig, or did you see signs in there that gave you some positivity going into the coming weeks?
You know, I'm an optimist by nature, but I think I'm a little bit, the Cowboys have beaten some cynicism into me over the last decade and change. And so I do think it was a little bit more lipstick on a pig. I will apply the context of Dallas, if you're unaware, plays on Thursday night this week. They visit the New York Giants. And so, I mean, as you know, there is kind of a natural quick wash of a gross loss that you're kind of able to sort through in the name of getting ready for your next game. So I do think when you compartmentalize everything together that way, it can be, a point of pride. You didn't totally quit, you didn't totally fall apart. Now, it was kind of fluky. It was the first successful onside kick in the new era where you have to declare it. But it should be noted that they were down 28-6 in the third quarter. I mean, at that point, Baltimore kind of took their foot off the gas.
The overall kind of riding feeling coming out of the organization right now, coming out of the people covering the organization, as much as I talked about that fourth quarter, is this a feeling that this is a ship that can be righted this season, that there are clear issues that can be cleaned up with the current coaching staff, current playing staff, without needing to make any kind of drastic changes?
It's been a really, I would use the word toxic time for the Cowboys from the moment that they were blown out by the Green Bay Packers in the wild card round. Ever since then, they've done a whole bunch of nothing. I mean, it's been well chronicled. Obviously, people like yourself are well aware of how they delayed the extensions that ultimately came for Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, and how if they'd gotten ahead of those things, they could have developed some salary cap space in the name of signing other players. Everybody is well familiar with Jerry Jones's all-in claim, and then the team not doing anything, and the team not drafting a running back and bringing Zeke Elliott back. It's almost as if they have found any sort of wound that anybody has and just poured salt in it over and over and over again. And I think if you look at the state of the division, obviously Washington and New York are not scaring anybody. And Philadelphia pulled off a really impressive win in week 3, and you certainly can't count them out. But this division is winnable, and I think it's not out of the range of possibility for Dallas to be the first team in 20 years to repeat as NFC East winners. But it does feel like they have a very low ceiling relative to other contending teams in the NFC. I would put your Niners up there, despite the 1-2 record. Certainly teams like the Detroit Lions, even the Green Bay Packers currently. It's not difficult, I think, to make a case against them for any sort of long-term success this season.
So the big question marks, and let's talk about the Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb of it all. The behaviour seen on the field and then off the field yesterday, the frustrations that seem to be going on within that locker room, very bare for the public to see. I mean, this does feel a bit Cowboys for it to all be playing out in the public eye rather than behind closed doors.
Yeah, I mean, again, they're living on the worst end of the spectrum. This is I'm a big reality television fan, and this is like, in Survivor season 40 when they brought back all the winners. You know what I mean? Like it was just like soaking wet in Survivorness, and this is that way with relative to the Dallas Cowboys. And look, it's a bummer to say, but CeeDee's kind of known for this behavior. When the Cowboys lost to San Francisco last year, he was, the word pout has such a negative connotation, and I'm always hesitant to use it, but was seen acting a bit morose on the sidelines and reportedly had to have a conversation with Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy after the fact, and the team turned things around. But we saw a similar set of behavior from CeeDee Lamb in the Green Bay Packers loss, and so seeing it now in a game where CeeDee fumbled, and a critical fumble at that. Obviously, all of them are so, but it's very difficult to defend. There are often times I think where you can put lipstick on those pigs and you can say, well, this and well, that, and he was feeling this. But, my pulse on the fan base is people are pretty tired of everything. And there is not really anybody. There are people defending Dak, certainly still, in spite of everything that happened. But everybody, I think, is pretty well convinced that CeeDee Lamb needs to be a little bit different moving forward.
There's always that higher expectation when the contract comes in, right? When you become the first $60 million quarterback in Dak's case. And you said there people are defending him. It didn't feel like through three quarters there was a lot defensible in that performance last night. Are there higher expectations now? Are people like, right, you've got paid, CeeDee Lamb got paid, this should be now, we're in kind of Super Bowl or bust territory. Is there a feeling like there is more weight on his shoulders than ever before?
I think so, especially when you add in the fact that they didn't add anybody and that they brought Zeke back. And I mean, they are trying, this is, when they had that Girl Meets World reboot of Boy Meets World, like this is just tugging at all our 90s nostalgia favorite sitcoms. And none of those ever work out, right? Like name the one, Fuller House was a disaster, right? Like they're all terrible. And so it's unfair, right? It's unfair to say that now you have to do more, now you have to whatever. But as we learned in Mad Men, that is what the money is for. And Dak Prescott was not great on Sunday and had the late rally. And I don't put a lot of stock into that, as mentioned. But with Micah Parsons needing a contract himself, I mean, these things serve as the center point of all these discussions for people. And I do my best and do my job to try to educate people and try to know, look, they could have paid these guys on top of acquiring help in free agency, on top of making other sort of roster management moves. But the Cowboys seem hell-bent on pushing a narrative that because these players are taking up this much percentage of the salary cap pie, they are stuck and their hands are tied. And so they have no problem giving you life-changing money, but you have to be willing to take some bullets for them in the process.
Is Dak a guy, though, that can take a team from, whether it's this season, whether it's over the next 4 years of that contract, to a first Super Bowl in 30 years? Is he that guy?
I tell you, of all the people that have tried, I think he's, got the DNA, the most likely DNA to be able to do it. He has people make so much about his level of leadership and things like that ultimately wind up falling on deaf ears. And you know this well, obviously, when your franchise hasn't done it, hasn't climbed over that specific hill in 3 decades. And so, but I mean, if you're a romantic, it does feel like he's the one, like he is Frodo and has been given the ring. But that being said, I mean, on Sunday against the Baltimore Ravens, Dak Prescott threw into a tight window 35.3% of the time. It was his highest in a game, highest percentage of tight window throws, I should say, since week 4 of 2018, which predates the Amari Cooper trade that Dallas made just a few weeks after that. So Dak has to be better. I don't say any of that to absolve him of blame, but he's getting no help from the cast around him. His offensive play caller and his head coach, Mike McCarthy, is not scheming him advantages that he can capitalize on or work to his benefit. And so he is swimming upstream in a lot of ways, in addition to the fact that, to your point, he's fighting this 30-year shadow and all the expectations and narratives that come with the crown that he happens to wear. It is a very, very difficult process. And this Cowboys season, with a week left to go in September, feels more dead on arrival than any has at this point of the season in recent history.
I do want to get to the Mike McCarthy of it all, but first of all, the Jerry Jones of it all. Okay, it was kind of whispering or speaking out loud, something we'd heard in whispers when it came to the performance of Derrick Henry this weekend, the play that they had on the ground with the Ravens, and then Jerry Jones just coming out and saying, we wanted him this year, we couldn't afford him. But how stark is it hearing the owner just be that forthright about it, or are you just used to it? Is it just Jerry Jones at this point?
It is just Jerry Jones in a lot of ways, and it's, I'm not going to pretend to have complete access to the Cowboys' financial books, but it's also false, right? Like, it doesn't take a genius, or an advanced level of analysis to be able to prove that they could have afforded him if they really wanted to, especially if they'd gotten the Dak and CD deals done ahead of time, as we encouraged them to. But Derrick Henry himself has always kind of been intrinsically tied to the Cowboys. He went in the second round after the Cowboys took Zeke Elliott in the first round in 2016. Was a reigning Heisman Trophy winner and seemed to have the better career. Seem to, at least has had the longer career, the longer, more sustained career at this point in time. And then, was reportedly interested in playing for them over the offseason, and they reportedly didn't even call him. And so that he would go off the way that he did, that Baltimore had 274 yards on the ground. It was the third largest disparity in rushing yards that the Cowboys have ever had as a team in a game. Derrick Henry was the first player ever against the Cowboys to have 150 yards or more on the ground, 2 rushing touchdowns, and 20 or more yards receiving. So, I mean, this, again, this was pre-written, that Derrick Henry would have this incredible performance against this team after Jerry Jones publicly bragged and did all the things that he did. We are living in WWE in many senses.
So, Mike McCarthy, I mean, I joked on the show back in week 1 that the moment he doesn't let Brandon Aubrey kick the 71-yarder, I think he should be fired there and then. Just because the NFL needs to be fun, right? That would have been fun, and I believe Brandon Aubrey could make that kick. I joked on Twitter again that he's the best player on the Cowboys, but I kind of feel like this year he might have been the best player on the Cowboys. But certainly Brian T. Smith I do the show with. We've talked plenty of times about whether McCarthy should have even seen this season, maybe should have even been appointed in the first place. So for all these lovely things we're saying and all these difficult things we're saying about Dak could be this, CD could be this if he wasn't pouting, and if they got the deals done earlier and everything else, how much are they hampered by the coaching in the building? And is that ever anything you could see changing during the season, or do you think this is very much a ride it out?
I've done a lot of defending of Mike McCarthy over the last 4 years, and I maintain that relative to the context of the situation and the team that he's coaching for, he has done some highly impressive things. The Cowboys are, at the moment, coming off of 3 consecutive playoff seasons, 3 consecutive 12-win seasons. They hadn't won double-digit games in 3 straight years. They've been a playoff team in 3 straight years since the glory and heydays of the 1990s, obviously. And most of that is about the unqualified people who came between then and Mike McCarthy, but he has brought football stability. He has, for the most part, made them a proper organization.
That's all lovely, though, but unless you're going to win in January and in February, for a team like the Cowboys, that doesn't mean anything.
It's difficult because McCarthy has a rap. He lost a very public PR battle to Aaron Rodgers, and ever since then, a lot of opinions about him have been set in stone that are very difficult to undo. And so I do think that he is fighting with one hand tied behind his back, so to speak. I think you had to make a decision on him one way or the other. You either had to fire him and move on, or you had to give him a long-term extension. But setting him into this year on the final year of his deal and then signing Mike Zimmer to a 1-year deal, and it just added to the dysfunction. So even if you do believe on some level, like I do, that McCarthy has something to his game, you have, again, amplified the toxicity around this by doing what you've done to the situation. And then, leaving him without his star wide receiver throughout all of training camp, and his franchise quarterback, kind of floating in the wind as well contractually. I would offer you to suggest the coach that could thrive in that situation. I don't say that as a defense of Mike McCarthy, but just as a testament to the overall chaos that he works on in a daily basis.
So Thursday night, Giants. You're talking, well, actually, before we get to that, all right, you're defending McCarthy, and I should probably address that a little bit, because I think it's good to hear that people do still back him. What does it take for him to still be in this job next year? What does he need to do in January and February specifically for Jerry Jones to extend that contract and not, have his eye turned by the shiny new thing, or the shiny very old thing, as that might be?
People love to say things like, if the Cowboys just reached the NFC Championship game, if they broke that seal, that people would be satisfied. And I don't mean this particular comment as a slight against your Niners. I meant all the previous ones. But I think you would say... I
can take it. I'm a big boy, RJ. I'm a big boy.
But when you're in this spot, which the Cowboys and Niners are, just reaching the NFC title game is almost worse because you fly that close to the sun. And so I don't think that would offer Mike McCarthy any sort of grace. Obviously, if they won the Super Bowl, I think he's safe, but it's very difficult to imagine a world where any of these things sort of happen. And again, I would offer that there's a level of ungratefulness from the front office for what he's done and the football stability that he has brought to them and provided them, and the heights that they have reached under him. Now, some of this depends on the context. I was very high on McCarthy last year, and there were a handful of ways that I would have been comfortable bailing on him this past offseason, and one of them unfolded. The way they lost to the Packers, I thought was enough that you had to move on. Now, if they reach the NFC Championship game, is that enough? What if they win in the divisional round off of a double doink sort of field goal that the other other team misses. Does that make you feel better about Mike McCarthy? You know, the context matters, but I just have a very difficult time seeing them doing enough to make this happen. You know, Sean Payton was the white whale for them for a long time with Bill Belichick out there. I don't know if that ultimately would happen, but it feels bad, and and it's very difficult to see it not feeling bad anytime soon.
If Bill Belichick can't get the Falcons job because they really like their general manager and want to keep him around, I really can't see when that is the same man as the person appointing him, that being a particularly easy transition to make. But I love the connection, and I love the idea it could happen, and wouldn't it be a lot of fun if it did? So on to Thursday. The Giants coming off their first win of the season over Cleveland Browns defense, who have proved tough. Malik Neighbors setting some, or at least meeting some rookie records and looking very good. But they are still the New York Giants, and they are still a team who, if they'd been 0-3 at this point, I don't think anyone would have been surprised. Is this the get-right game for Dallas?
Yeah, I mean, this leads to what people say about the Cowboys, and that they beat up on the bad teams and these kind of empty calories, if you will. I fully expect them to win on the road. But I will say that it is very possible to kind of – you don't have to close your eyes and squint hard to see – 246 yards and 4 touchdowns from Malik Neighbors, and that being what propels the Giants to victory, and it being his coming out party in the way that the Cowboys were the Odell Beckham Jr. coming out party with the catch, which wasn't a losing effort. People often forget that detail. But that being said, I do think the Cowboys win. They visit the Pittsburgh Steelers next week on Sunday Night Football, and I know they're undefeated, but I think you would probably pick the Cowboys to win that game at this point in time. I think that probably gets them north of.
I love that Steelers defense, buddy.
Well, I mean, look. My point is it's not inconceivable, right? These are two lower quality offenses that they're going up against before they return home to host the Detroit Lions, who are stumbling a little bit, and you never know how that's going to go. But, I mean, I could see them winning these next two and setting up that showdown with Detroit, who was the last team they beat in their home building. They're riding a 3-game losing streak there at the moment. So I think they win on Thursday night. I think they win next Sunday night, and I think they pull just enough people back to break their heart, just like they did on Sunday. It was such a microcosm of who they are. They disappoint, and then make you believe enough to where when they actually lose, it's the most painful thing ever.
RJ, always a pleasure. As always, we go long as well, but it's a joy speaking to you whenever we can. Where can people check out your fine work with SB Nation and beyond?
bloggingtheboys.com is the home for all my written work. It's a tough time these days, but a bad football season is better than anything else, even the Premier League. I apologize to all of your countrymen. On social at RJ Ochoa, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, but some jerk had it on TikTok, so I'm RJ.Ochoa over there.
Scumbag. Absolutely appreciate it, mate. Thank you so much. Don't forget, subscribe if you've got any thoughts on the Cowboys, or if you just want to rip into my Niners, as apparently is just the way that all these videos are going to go, then just let us know down in the comments below, and we'll see you on the next one.